what is going on, guys? It's your boy Sonic the Game Fan, and welcome to episode 4 of my Let's Review series. On today's episode, I will be reviewing the second game on the PS1 and the second Crash Bandicoot game, called Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back. What, do you think it was The Empire Strikes Back? No, it may look the same, but it's different. It's not the same. So without further ado, let's begin with episode 4. So after the success of Crash Bandicoot, it's time for Naughty Dog to do a second game. But however, there were some changes to go through in order for the second game to be successful. Andy Gavin, the co-creator, wanted to program a new engine known as the GODL2, or the Game-Oriented Object LISB2 for short, which means it needs to be 3 times faster than the previous game's engine, and the engine would handle animation frames of water surfaces and mud surfaces in the jungle. It had to be flat on the y-axis and no waves and subdividing plains. Now let's begin with the plot of the story. After the fight with Cortex in the first game, he falls from an airship and into a cave-in with glowing crystals. Cortex takes one of the crystals and gets back to his lab. A year has passed, and Cortex and Dr. Jin are building an upgraded crystal-powered vortex. It turns out, however, that he says that they need 25 more crystals to reach the maximum vortex capacity, which in this case, they don't have enough left on Earth. So now he devises a plan to control Crash Bandicoot to retrieve those crystals. In the island, Coco had Crash retrieve a battery for her computer, but Crash is abducted, until he finds himself in a warp room to access to several places around the world, where he meets a holographical projection of Cortex that he told Crash that he discovered an upcoming alignment of the planets that would create a solar flux that has the ability to categorize projections. Crash is now tasked to retrieve those pink power crystals from each rooms to help him harness the crystal's energy to disappear with an unleashed power. Crash battles with several of Cortex's former allies, which is the Ripperoo, the Commodore brothers, and Tiny Tiger. Meanwhile, Coco uses her technology to hack into Cortex's hologram communication to tell Crash to be careful of trusting Cortex. But it turns out Cortex tells Crash to return the crystals to Jin. But instead, Crash destroys Jin's machines and defeats the assistant, making Cortex furious. After Crash gathers all of the 25 crystals, Coco holds a steady connection for Cortex. Ultimate plan reveal. He will power up the gigantic Cortex vortex that was built on a space station and controls everyone on the Earth. That will be serving in his army. Well, not in real life, only in the game. Crash and Cortex duel out on a battle once again before the crystals can be used. This leaves Cortex drifting through outer space and leaves the Cortex vortex. Crash uses all the gems and crystals through each warp room and learns Brio built a laser beam machine that is powered with the energy from the gems. With Crash getting help from Dr. Brio, the Cortex vortex breaks apart, with the places falling back to Earth, and that's how the plot goes. That's the end of the story. Let's talk about the gameplay. So return to the old Crash Bandicoot game. Crash can do the spin attack, but new to Crash, we can do crouch and a crawl, crouching, crawling, digging, doing the body slam, the high jump, the long jump, and that's it. So a body slam can allow Crash to break through objects. Yes, different objects. The spin can let Crash spin like a tornado to knock up enemies. He can slide by jumping higher. Now for the first time in history, Crash uses a jet board. Hang on to mashes, has a jetpack, and has the ability to dig. Well, where to start first? So let's start out with the jet board. Crash will have the control of this jet board that has a speed boost, which, yes, it is kind of cool. The second one is the polar bear, and I find this one really interesting because you're riding on a polar bear. It's unusual to ride this, but controlling the polar bear can be, but again, it is kind of interesting. Now, here's one of the red flags. The player can move left and right in levels where the polar automatically moves forward. The third one is hanging onto meshes, which is, yes, wires. And you can use the buttons and analog stick to let go or move through the meshes. And boy, good luck in trying to get through there. And the jetpack, he can fly through moving forward, backwards, doing everything. And when Crash digs, he can dive under, spin objects while he's underground, and jump out with X. And that's basically all the moves. In addition to the boxes returning, he can collect Wumpa Fruits. With the Wumpa Fruit, and yes, I know what this is. You can collect after Wumpa Fruits is collected. It allows an extra life, and the total requirement is 100. 100 Wumpa Fruit. Aside from the Wumpa Fruits, some might contain a Witch Doctor mask protecting Crash from an enemy's attack. And he'll get this invulnerability. If he collects 3 masks in a row, this invulnerability, he'll get it. This one is only temporary, so yeah, good luck and that. And this is only applies to minor dangers, not major ones. But returning to Crash Bandicoot are the explosives. And boy, oh boy, that's where it comes to mind. But instead, you can't touch it. One touch, you're dead. So whatever you do, don't touch it. I repeat, don't touch it. Well, what do you do here? Well, that's a good question. You have this, an exclamation bars, which these boxes will cause previous objects to sulfide. That includes the boxes and nitro boxes. And yes, those nitro boxes are toxic. Way toxic than the freaking bombs. So if you touch them, yeah, good luck. It's game over. And then new to Crash 2, we have bonus paths that can lead to Crash into a secret region with a question mark. It can lead to collecting numerous Wumpa Fruits and extra lives. You need to successfully navigate to the end of the path, because if you don't, you lose everything that you collected. Now let's get to the worlds. Unlike Crash Bandicoot, you don't have worlds. Instead, you have a warp stage. And yeah, these crystals are scattered through 25 different levels. And they are divided into each world. The 11 themed worlds can range from a jungle theme, a river theme, a chase theme, a polar theme, a sewer theme, a ruins theme, an alpine theme, a dynamo theme, and a jetpack theme world, and a night jungle theme. That's a total of 25 levels. That's 5 levels in each of their own worlds. But you need to collect the crystals in those worlds. But aside from that, we have their own bosses, which is a total of 5. First one is the Ripperoo, which will lay TNT squares and then lay 14 Nitro squares. The second one is the Commodore Brothers, where it only takes 3 hits, but Mo will throw out the sword around the rooms counterclockwise. The third one is the Tiny Tiger, which he jumps from platform to platform, and it will turn red. But if Crash lands on the same platform, game over. And the final two is the Dr. Jin and Cortex bosses. You'll scream bloody murder with these two bosses if you don't have enough lives. And boy, good luck with that. If you do this if it gets worse, well, you're gonna regret this boss. So, what do I think about Crash Bandicoot 2? Cortex Strikes Back? Well, I find this a really great game. I find this really cool because of the new mechanics, the new bosses, and the graphics. They're like, damn, they're good. And finding the crystals are pretty cool, but really complicated. Now remember, this game was also on the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy with Crash 1 and Crash Warped. So if you don't own a PS1 or PS2, but own a PS4, play this game on the Insane Trilogy. And that'll do it for episode 4. And on the next review, I'll be tackling on Crash Bandicoot, which should be a game I've been waiting to do to review. So until next time, I'll see you guys on episode 5 of my Let's Review series. Peace.